Hi, today I'm going to talk about masking and mirroring. I've touched on this before on a couple of my videos where I'm talking about people not believing that I've got Asperger's, and the door just opened by itself. And me not appearing to have Asperger's when I do. So I didn't really go into detail about mirroring and masking, but that really is the reason, probably, why people just think that, or tend to think that I don't have Asperger's when I do. So both mirroring and masking, which I will go into detail about and explain to you what they are further on in the video. They are more common in females with Asperger's. Males with Asperger's don't really tend to bother that much with both of these things. And so I think that's probably the main reason why it's harder to detect in females. So masking is basically when you, for example, go into a job interview and kind of force yourself to put on this persona of somebody who is outgoing, who is good with small talk, and just seems to be very upbeat and full of energy and just very a people person, because in most jobs or in the world of work in general, employers seem to want people even for jobs that don't require you to be a people person. And I use that example because I've done that myself on countless occasions, and I am really good with interviews. So, but then I go home after the interview and I'm just like, and I can just be myself and probably calm down from that intense experience and, not putting on an act, but bringing the most outgoing parts of me to the forefront and amplifying them. It's a very exhausting thing, and I probably just end up sitting at home watching videos of abandoned buildings or something with my thumb in my mouth. But people don't see that. People only see what I allow them to see within reason. I mean, if I'm having a particularly bad day, then I'll probably not be able to mirror or mask. But generally speaking, I do try and mask a little bit because it makes life easier for me, it makes life easier for everybody else. And I mean, some people might argue that that's a bad thing because I'm not presenting my full autistic self to everybody all the time, but I feel like I've had to do that to get jobs and make friends and get close to people, because other people's way of communicating and socializing and living is completely different to my idea of those things. So I mean, I would say that masking isn't really pretending to be somebody you're not. It's just presenting yourself in a way that is more palatable and more understandable for neurotypical people. So I have over the years taught myself things that neurotypical people say to each other in different scenarios, and I will use those phrases and greetings and formalities, if that's the right word. But there's only a limited amount of these things, and if I don't know what kind of social interaction I'm going to have, and it's very different to what I expected, and you know, I can't use what I've learnt in that context, then I do panic and it doesn't work out the way I planned it. Yeah. And, you know, once I get past the formalities and the very limited run of small talky phrases that I kind of use to break the ice with people or make things less awkward or try and appear more neurotypical, if I find that people actually are a bit similar to me or have common interests, or, you know, I'm interested in that person, want to get to know them, then I'll kind of just leave that behind and just be more myself. But I think it's kind of like a protective barrier as well, because you don't want people bullying you, you don't want people taking the piss out of you, you don't want to feel like the weirdo. So if you act how you are naturally, then, you know, in my experience, people seem to be very, I don't know, very standoffish and a bit, you know, why is that person acting like that, you know? And it kind of makes people feel uncomfortable, and it makes you feel uncomfortable as well. So, yeah, I mean, masking for me, I do it in most initial social situations. I do it when I go to the shop and I'm talking to the checkout operator. I usually have 2 or 3 generic things that I say to a checkout operator. And, you know, if they start a conversation with me and I'm not ready for it, then I'll probably just like laugh and smile, and then that's the end of that. Because I wasn't expecting them to kind of say something that was out of my bounds of what I was expecting, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's masking. I'd kind of say masking is like a stepping stone or a helping hand to get to know somebody as well, or to achieve something that requires socializing with people, because without masking that would make it very difficult for a lot of people anyway. So when you do mask it and, you know, kind of put on this front of being neurotypical and not autistic at all, it does sometimes help you to get to the places where you want to be and make friends with people that you want to make friends with. But, you know, the thing is, as well, not everybody is neurotypical. Not everybody thinks like neurotypical people. Not everybody is judgmental. I'm not talking about neurotypical people as if they're horrible. Like, you know, I don't think that at all. But, you know, not everybody thinks about things the same way. So if you were to present yourself fully autistic and just how you are, you know, this is how it is, deal with it, then, you know, there would be a lot of people that would warm to that, you know, and would admire you for how you are. But for me personally, because I think it's because of the way that I was not brought up, but the time that I was brought up, when none of this was really visible, and you know, there wasn't a lot of awareness about it. I did face a lot of "you're stupid," "you're weird," "I don't want to be friends with you," you know, "you're thick," "why are you walking like that?" "Why are you talking like that?" "That's rude, don't say that." "You can't just obsess over somebody, you can't just obsess over something." And it kind of got ingrained into my brain that I had to tone it down, I had to be more normal, I had to change, because the person that I was the person that I the person that I was obviously making people feel uncomfortable and you know, kind of worrying my parents because I was acting so strange. So, you know, when you grow up in that situation and in that environment where nothing you ever do is good enough, and you know, the way you are kind of freaks people out, you do go through a period, most people anyway go through a period where they want to sort that out. You know, they kind of think, I can't live like this anymore because I just feel like shit and I've got no self-esteem and I'm never going to get anywhere in life. So I've got to try and be somebody else. And I think that's what happened with me. But now, you know, obviously I've got this YouTube channel. I don't care about who sees the videos because I want to raise awareness about Asperger's. I want to try and help other people with Asperger's and autism, and get rid of this stigma that is still here, but not as severe. And, you know, I feel like I can be more myself around people, but in some situations, masking, I feel it's necessary, personally. And, you know, what anybody else does is up to them. You know, different people have got different ways of coping with things and getting through life, and having Asperger's is bloody hard. Like, there's a lot worse things that you can have, and I know there's a lot of people a lot worse off than I am, and I'm not whinging and moaning about it, I'm just saying it is bloody difficult. So whatever way you have to cope with that and to get on with your life, you know, as long as it's not hurting you or hurting somebody else, but it's up to you, you know, none of my business. I'm not going to judge. Excuse me. Peanuts. So mirroring is another way of coping with Asperger's and coping with social situations and building friendships and just getting by in this neurotypical world that we're living in. Another one, sorry. And basically mirroring is copying other people's body language, copying the tone of voice, how they say things that they say, and then internalising that and using that for your own social interactions later on. This is something that I did way before I was diagnosed with Asperger's. I've done it ever since I was probably a toddler. And when you're copying things that people are saying off TV soaps and films, it is a little bit embarrassing because nobody really talks to people like that, and you know, it's a bit like so yeah, I did get a few funny faces growing up. I can remember, and a few things that I said that were really embarrassing from films and TV and stuff. But you know, people with Asperger's, we are pretty much born into the world without the social handbook or guidelines that neurotypical people have. So imagine being dropped off in a spaceship on planet Earth and thinking, well, what the bloody hell's going on here? That is exactly how somebody with Asperger's and autism feels. Like, we are, the first few years of our life, childhood, teenage years, early adulthood, and even further along than that, depending on what your experience is when you were diagnosed, what help you were given and stuff. It's all about feeling around, trying to make your way around this minefield, this neurotypical minefield, and not having a clue what's going off, and trying to teach yourself how to communicate from scratch because you don't have those skills and that innate understanding that neurotypical people have. Like, if you watch kids growing up, you'll see patterns in their behaviour, in the way that they speak to other kids, the way that they speak to other adults, and you know, the development in the communication is normal and, you know, fine. But in a child with Asperger's, usually takes them a lot longer they come out with things that aren't inappropriate maybe, and yeah, it's a really difficult, long and drawn out thing. So mirroring is one of those ways to learn how people communicate. But the thing is, not everybody uses the right body language and the right tone of voice and says the right things at the right time. So that's the problem with mirroring. Sometimes you can pick up things that you've seen another person do, and actually it's quite rude, or it's not fitting to whatever context you've tried to use it in, which again can cause some embarrassment. But sometimes it is good, I still observe other people and how they move around and speak and stuff, and see if I can learn anything new, because I still feel like I haven't really got a clue. I'm just winging it and seeing what happens, and on these videos I probably come across like your average person, but I'm talking to myself pretty much. And I know that the people watching these videos are probably other autistic people, or people learning about Asperger's who know that I've got Asperger's. But in day-to-day life, when there's no time to explain yourself, or you can't be bothered to explain yourself because you have to do that a lot anyway, it does come in handy to use masking and mirroring to make your life and everybody else's lives easier. But that aside, you've still got to remember that although Asperger's and autism isn't you, it's a big part of you, and it isn't something to be ashamed of. It's what makes you unique, and there are positives to having Asperger's, even though a lot of the time it's shit. Really shit sometimes. But that's the wonderful world of Asperger's. So yeah, that's all I've got to say on it, really. It wasn't going to be an in-depth thing. I just thought I'd mention that because I'd not really touched on it before. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.